this time, then I would like to introduce Bruce Chamberlain of the Mound Visions program.
Larry mentioned, my name is Bruce Chamberlain. I'm the coordinator of the Mound Visions project. I've had the good fortune of working with the community mound since 1991. It's been nearly 10 years that I've been working with the community. Larry mentioned that when all of you were in, he was going to lock the door in the back. I'm afraid that I'm the one in the most danger if that door gets locked. I'm a little concerned about that. But I'll try and do my best to describe what we're doing with the Mound Visions project and with the redevelopment of the downtown area. And I've got some drawings here that I'll cover. The past year, how many of you were at this presentation last year? Can I get a show of hands? Maybe about half of you. How many of you know about the Mound Visions plan? Have you seen it? Are you familiar with it? Another show of hands? Great. I'm not going to spend a lot of time then going over the actual plan. We've been involved since 1991 developing the Mound Visions program, and with many community volunteers in those first 4 to 5 years. We developed a concept plan that you see over to my far left that really has become the touch point and the vision for what we're trying to accomplish in the downtown area. And we've had a number of successes through this time. The city has received 2 federal grants to do the dredging of the Lost Lake Canal, which was completed last year. We also received a grant to do the Greenway, which is upcoming. The Greenway around the north side of the Lost Lake area will be constructed, we had hoped this year. It's been delayed by 1 year to next year. It will be constructed next summer and completed by the fall. We also received municipal state aid dollars, which are essentially gas tax money, to construct what seems like a strange looking street, Auditors Road. Auditors Road will become the new Main Street of downtown. It'll have new retail and housing developed on it. In the time that I last saw this group a year ago, we have put in place a couple of development contracts, preliminary development contracts with developers. A company called Beard Group, which is a development company in Hopkins, has control of what we're calling the Auditors Road District and the Lake Langdon District. Those 2 districts comprise about 12 acres of land in the downtown area and are essentially between Our Lady of the Lake Church and the railroad tracks and Lake Langdon. That's the Langdon District. And the Auditors Road District fronts on the new Auditors Road, that street that used to be an alley, overlooks the Lost Lake Canal and goes up to the railroad tracks. In 2002, County Road 15 will be relocated. The county has that on their capital improvement program for that year, and that will make way then for the completion of the Auditors Road District. We also have a development contract with Bruce and Patty Dodds, Mound Family Hardware, to redevelop their store. I'm happy to say that that project is moving forward rapidly. We have come to a preliminary agreement with them to redevelop their store. They'll be building about a 16,000 square foot space. It'll be built where the current parking lot is in front of their store, and they'll be breaking ground, we anticipate, the middle to late May. So that'll be the first project that's constructed in Mound, and it's been a long haul, and I'm looking forward to that bulldozer starting on that project. I can't tell you how much. So we're glad that the Dodds are the first project to be put in the ground, because they've meant so much to this community and have such a successful business. So we think that it's very appropriate that they kick off the redevelopment of the downtown area. Their project, by the way, will be going to the City Council for approval of the final development plan or final development agreement, which is really a contract between the city and the developer, in April, sometime in April, and that will be hopefully approved by the HRA, Housing and Redevelopment Authority, at that time. The other project I mentioned, the Beard Group out of Hopkins, they'll be going to the City Council also in April for approval of their development contract for the Langdon District. The Langdon District, again, is the area between Our Lady of the Lake Church and the railroad tracks, Lake Langdon, and County Road 110. And they have a two-phase project. Their first phase is the Langdon District. That's the one that we'll be hopefully approving a development contract for in April. They anticipate breaking ground. That's fine. I don't talk loudly enough, I guess. They'll be breaking ground in late August or September. That's the anticipated date. So there will be a lot of construction going on this next year, redevelopment projects. A lot of you may know that we've been working, seems like forever now, on trying to get the post office relocated. The City of Mound owns the post office building right now. They acquired it a couple of years ago as part of the Auditor's Road improvement project. And we've been working ever since to try and find an appropriate location for that facility. We see it as very important to keep it within the commercial district of downtown because it draws people. It's an icon for the community. To have a post office downtown, we feel is very important. And we're working to try and find sites. We have it, we thought we had it nailed down, and we've kind of stepped back a little bit and are, again, reviewing some site alternatives. We have to have a deal with the Postal Service in the next 2 months in order to proceed with the Greenway project next year. So we're working extremely hard to try and put that project together, and I think we're on track, and I hope that we have some good news on that issue in a couple of months, within a couple of months. I mentioned a little bit the Greenway project, which is ICE-T funded. The Greenway project, it's on this drawing right here. This is the... I told Larry that I feel like an entertainer when I do this, but I'll do my best. This drawing right here, I know that it's a little bit difficult for many of you to see, but I'll just point out a couple of things. This is the new Auditor's Road. Right now, it dumps out into County Road 15 right here, just kind of feeds out into that area. As County Road 15 is relocated to the north and aligned with Linwood Boulevard in this location, Commerce Place is right here. Auditor's Road, the final portion of Auditor's Road, will be built and extended to the realigned County Road 15. The Greenway that I mentioned creates really an important recreational and kind of community gathering hub for the community. And it'll stretch between County Road 110 and this location. It'll follow Auditor's Road, go past the Central Green and a pier that we'll be constructing over the Lost Lake Canal area, and then follow around across a boardwalk, a portion of the Lost Lake area, go past the future hotel site, and extend a trail all the way to Cypress Lane, which is leading up to City Hall in this location. The community ball fields or the Lions fields are right here. Are they still called the Lions fields? Are they? Okay. The two ball fields are right there. Super America sits right here. And that Greenway project will also construct a transit park and ride lot on the Lost Lake site right here. And our intent is to use this park and ride lot for potentially some shared parking with the hotel site so that we maximize the amount of parking that we're constructing in the downtown area and we don't build too much and we don't have a downtown that's just full of parking lots. But that will have a very nice facility for people to drive to the downtown area. There are many people in Mound that use the bus to get to work in Minneapolis. So this will have a bus shelter, kind of an upgraded shelter on it, and people can then go to and from work from this facility. Eventually, we'd also like to build some kind of a banquet facility, what we're calling a Centrum building, that would have concessions, public restrooms, some other public amenities as part of it, but also a space that people can use in the community for gatherings, for events, receptions, what have you. Right now, there really isn't a facility in Mound to do that, and we see that as an important adjunct to the future hotel. Can you all still hear me? Every once in a while, I feel like this is cutting out. But County Road 15, the relocation of that roadway, will very likely include some center medians, as you see here. We're working with the county to try and make those as aesthetically pleasing as possible. We'll be doing some landscape improvements along the boulevards in order to make this a very nice entrance into the downtown area. Right now, all of downtown, pretty much all of the downtown area, drains directly into Lost Lake. One of the components of doing the Lost Lake Canal project was that we wanted to improve the environmental quality and the ecological impact of the downtown area on Lost Lake. So one of the things that we work very hard to do is determine how we create an overall stormwater management plan that directs all the stormwater in the downtown area, instead of into Lost Lake, feeds it into stormwater ponds that you see in these kind of blue circles or amoebas on the plan, treats the water before it eventually goes into Lost Lake. So we're excited about the possibility of doing that, the opportunity to do that. That'll be constructed as part of the County Road 15 realignment and relocation project. So we hope that there's going to be significant water quality improvements as part of this downtown redevelopment too. I mentioned a little bit the hotel site. Last year, I think when we spoke, we had a preliminary development agreement with a hotel developer for this site. The city has since determined to not pursue that development project. The hotel developer was telling us at this current time that they felt they could only support about a 40-room hotel, and it would be something like a Super 8. And it's the opinion of the city that if we wait a couple of years, when we get more redevelopment projects happening in the downtown core, we're going to be able to support a much nicer and maybe a little bit larger hotel facility on that site. So we're just going to wait a little bit and see how things flush out with the redevelopment downtown, and then pursue that hotel redevelopment sometime in about a year and a half. And I think we'll be able to get something that is quite nice. I'm going to move this plan over. Some of you may have picked up the handouts that I had over on this table. The handouts show the drawing that I have right here, as well as the conceptual drawing that we have from Beard Group. The redevelopment projects are quite exciting. We're looking at adding within the Auditors Road and the Langdon District about 50,000 square feet of retail space. All of that space would be at the street level, and it would all be constructed at the sidewalk. We're pursuing and we're intending to redevelop the downtown Mound in a very traditional downtown pattern rather than a suburban pattern. So we have on-street parking, and we're working with the county to add on-street parking to 110 once again. But a bulk of the parking, overflow parking, will be constructed behind buildings or under buildings. And the developer is suggesting that on the Auditors Road District, which is the conceptual drawing that you have, or that you can pick up later, he's suggesting that we do underground parking for the residential above that retail that I talked about. Along with the retail at the streetscape, he's suggesting 3 stories of housing, rental housing above. And it would be very nice rental housing. It's a great opportunity to support downtown retail by having people actually living in this downtown core. And people have found, the country is finding that in order to keep downtown successful and viable and vibrant and exciting, it's important to have different types of uses within those areas. If you have just retail, your downtowns tend to fade at about 5 o'clock. People go home and there's no activity there. It's hard to get people back. In order to create a life in the downtown area that really is 24 hours a day, it's important to have different types of uses downtown. So we're working hard to try and get a mix of retail uses, to have some entertainment uses such as the hotel and things that draw guests to the downtown area, as well as a good deal of housing in the downtown. So those 3 stories of apartments that will be above the retail will go a long way in supporting the retail that's there, as well as providing housing alternatives to people who live in Mound today and are interested in maybe something different than a single-family home. So we think that's going to be very exciting. The Langdon District, over on the west side of County Road 110, has the same type of character with retail at the street level and then housing above, but there's an added component to that, and that's fairly high-end townhomes that will be oriented toward Lake Langdon. The developer is suggesting, I forget the exact number, but essentially there are townhomes that will be built on a couple of private streets that will overlook Lake Langdon in this direction. And selling prices, what we've heard from the developer, will go from $180,000 to $450,000 for those townhomes. So they'll be fairly pricey, but they're an opportunity for us to, again, kind of raise the bar a bit for some of the either rental or for sale and different type of living options that people have in Mound. And again, that'll be hopefully going to the council in April. That's what we're expecting. April 11th is actually the date that they're on the agenda to review that development proposal. Many of you have probably seen the dredging of the Lost Lake Canal. The canal was dredged last winter, and we had hoped that we could finish the components of that Lost Lake Canal project this past summer. But because of the post office not being able to be relocated until we find a new site, we had to delay that project, and that's what will be done next year. But that project will include, eventually it'll have a turnaround essentially where the post office is. Right here, it'll have again, the central green and the pier. It'll also have municipal docks around the perimeter of the Lost Lake turnaround. There'll be about 22 slips of municipal docks in that area that will allow people to boat into downtown Mound, park their boat for a period of time, have lunch, dinner, shop, do whatever, and then head back out to the lake. An interesting component of that relates to restoration of the Minnetonka a number of years ago is that we hope that we can introduce an excursion boat onto the Lost Lake Canal that would link with the Minnetonka. And last fall, we found a boat at boy, I forget the name of the marina. One of the marinas on the lake that was interested in getting rid of a boat that they had. And they essentially gave it to the city. So now we have about a 60-foot boat sitting on a piece of property that the mayor owns. And we're assessing whether or not that boat, which used to be a dinner cruiser, whether or not that is restorable and possibility of reintroducing that to the Lost Lake Canal. And it's kind of intriguing because it's a really interesting old wood boat. And it, boy, it needs a lot of work. I've got to say it's a mess. But the Minnetonka needed a lot of work also, and we've all seen where that has gone. So we're evaluating, we are talking to some experts on boats to determine whether or not it's actually possible to restore that boat and use it as an excursion boat that would come up and dock essentially at the pier in the downtown area. And if that can happen, that'd be fantastic. If that particular boat doesn't work, we still want to pursue that option and try and find a boat that will work so that we can reintroduce some of the historic nature of the Lost Lake Canal to the downtown area. Some of you may know that the school district has a purchase agreement with a developer for the old high school site. Obviously, the old high school was torn down last year, this past summer. And a developer called Metro Plains Development has a purchase agreement with the school district. We're working with them to the extent possible to look at their development proposals. And they made a presentation to the city council some 2-3 weeks ago. It was met with kind of lukewarm favor, and I think that's fine. It's the first presentation that they made to the city, and I think some positive, the reaction that came out of that meeting will lead to a better plan. And where that project ultimately goes, we don't know. Obviously, there's a group of folks in Mound who are interested in trying to preserve the current field area, Heador Field, I think it's called, preserve that as green space. That's a viable option as well. It depends on how much support there is from the community. And we'll see where that whole process goes and continues. Let's see, what else can I talk about? Over the last year, since we've really pursued the redevelopment of this project very aggressively, we've established tax increment financing in a district in the downtown area, which is really the tool that the community can use to redevelop these areas. It's one of the only tools that cities have. We're finding that the finances of the projects that are being proposed are very favorable. They pay for themselves, and they look like a very good component and good addition to the community. The most difficult project with difficult portion or part of any downtown redevelopment project is the nature of redevelopment causes upheaval and unsurety among the business community in the downtown area. That's the most difficult component of this, because there are businesses downtown that have been downtown for many, many years that are going to be relocated, that are going to be, that we're working to try and get in new space. But that component of this is extremely difficult and hard for me, because there are folks and businesses in the downtown area that are going through a tough time because of this redevelopment project. And what we're trying to do is make this happen as quickly as absolutely possible so that we minimize the stress, the distress that we know that this project is causing. So that's a very unfortunate component of redevelopment. But at the same time, I think the community as a whole has said this has to happen. Our downtown is not going in the right direction. We have to make this happen. So we're just trying to work as hard as we can to make it happen as quickly as possible. I don't know that I have other... I just heard about a reintroduced thought on community center. Obviously, up until about a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, the old high school site was envisioned to be transformed into a community center. And the city council at the time decided that was not a project that they wanted to pursue. And they decided to get out of that arrangement with the school district. So we have not, in the Mound Vision's process, since that time, we have not envisioned a different or new community center. So I guess the answer is no, we haven't. We know that the senior center is acquiring property on Lost Lake. So they are looking for and probably will have new space before, I think, the year is out. So that's one component of the community center, but the other components have not been envisioned as part of downtown redevelopment. The downtown core has been envisioned as a retail core with housing, but a community center obviously adds the entertainment, or an entertainment, and probably an important entertainment component to bringing people into the downtown core. The difficulty is paying for it, I guess, and the second difficulty is finding a site that it can go on. There's still, I suppose, the option, if the community feels strongly enough and is vocal enough, there's the option of pursuing the community center site or the old high school site for a community center. And if that's something that the community feels strongly enough, I encourage you to go to the city council and make yourselves heard. Yeah. Larry, did you want to have your wrap before we get into other questions? Thank you.
Why don't we all take a little 5-minute break here? If anybody brought in food for the food shelf and didn't get a ticket, because I'm going to do a drawing for it, go back there now and you can get a ticket. Because we got about, what we're going to do is draw for books and then that big centerpiece of flowers over there. So it'll take about 5 minutes. We'll do the drawing. Hanson, she's starting in April. We haven't had a city manager around for a while, so it'll be kind of nice to have one again. Thank you. So there she is. If you see her on the street or anywhere.
Your problems are mine.
Well, you asked for it. And next, I'd like to introduce Mary Deviney, and she's in charge of our food shelf, right? Our West Tonka food shelf. So if you ever need anything, and the store is closed, you know where to go.
Carol of the Historical Society talked to me some time ago, and they asked whether they might sponsor this event and bring food to the food shelf. And what a wonderful idea. Any way that we can get food, and especially at this time, and it was told to you already, that we're getting food and money back for what is contributed. So I really thank you all. Minnesota Food Share Drive time, it's a great time. And I've been blessed to be in this community doing this food shelf job for 14 years. And I would like to do it some more years if at all possible. So God bless you all for your contributions. And if you know anybody that needs help, our number is 472-5599, and everybody is helped by appointment. So just remember those two things. Thank you very much.
Now, we're going to have another meeting in May, and our guest speaker at that meeting is going to be Kurt Bessie, and he's involved with the all-school reunion that's going on here this summer, and I think I heard him say that they've mailed out like 5,000 invitations to school, anybody who's ever gone to school in Mound. And he's tried to ask your questions in a fairly loud voice. I've asked Bruce to repeat the question because sometimes it's hard to pick them up on a tape from the audience. So if you have questions, and I know it'll start out slow and then everybody will be raising their hands. So here's Bruce again.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know which buildings in the Langdon phase are going to be torn down and when.
Okay. The question is, which buildings in the Langdon district are going to be torn down and when? There are two buildings in the Langdon district that the developer has indicated they're interested in keeping. There are the two buildings closest to Our Lady of the Lake Church. They're owned by the Meisels. One is owned by the Meisels and one is owned by Mr. Koenig. Those two buildings are the two with the most tenants. There are two that the developer feels he wants to try and save. Those buildings, all the rest of the buildings on that block would be torn down as part of the redevelopment project. As far as when, the developer anticipates that they would like to start construction in August or September of this year. So demolition would be the first thing to happen. We have issues with some business relocation in that district as well. So those have to be addressed before any buildings are torn down. There's something else I was going to mention. I know. The two buildings that would remain, we are putting dollars into the budget to do facade improvements on those two buildings so that they blend in and fit in well with the rest of the project.
Could you tell us who's in those buildings now?
Businesses?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I can tell you. I know the Laker is in the Meisel building. There's I believe a hair salon. I forget the name of it. Three's Company Hair Salon in the Koenig building. An insurance agency. Weiser Insurance.
The chiropractor, no?
I think the chiropractor is in the Meisel building. Yes, they would stay.
But the old bank building is going.
Right, the old bank building would go.
Is the Lauer building going too?
Pardon me?
Lauer, the dentist?
Oh, that's part of a different phase.
Oh, that's
part of
phase.
the Auditor's Road
Okay.
district. Yes, sir.
I guess I have some comments. I'm not an old timer. I've only lived on the lake for about 30 years. We used to go, well, maybe I am. Some days I feel like it.
You said that with a straight face, too.
Well, I did. It's all in mind, I guess, mind over matter. I have some concerns regarding this. We used to love to take the boat over to Excelsior and park and shop and bring groceries home. And believe it or not, with a nice chest ice cream will last an hour on the boat. But don't do what they did when you talk about commercialization of this little parking area for the docks. You can't get into Excelsior. I think they have 2 docks, maybe 3, that you can put a commuter boat in. And that's it. Everything else is commercial.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that happened. The other comment that I guess I'd like to make is, we're talking about a community center. Think in terms of that banquet facility that would help the hotel, maybe being part of that community. Just a thought, that's all. It might be an easy way. And last but not least, you're talking about upgrading Mound, which I think is great, and you're talking about some of these big townhomes that you might be putting in. You have to be able to support those townhomes with grocery stores that are upgraded from what we have now. It's a shame. I'm leaving here and I'm driving to Wayzata to Lund's to get some things because I know they're not carried here. And with the high price of gas today, among other things, why? Why am I doing that? Well, we have people over for dinner and we have expectations. That's all my comments.
Great comments, thank you. As far as the commercialization of the docks, all 22 slips that will be built as part of this project are municipal docks. They're transient docks. So they would all be intended for people who are coming into the downtown area who want to spend a short time. Does that get at your comment?
Only if the city council doesn't change and they change their minds. And if somebody can put that in ink today for posterity, that might be a good deal.
I don't think I can do that. I'm pretty sure I don't have that authority.
We have a city manager, I'm sure.
Yes, sir, in the back.
I heard a rumor a cop might be moving into where the school building was. Is that true?
I haven't heard that one, but you never know. I know the developer has talked about the possibility of trying to get a grocery store on that site.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard Cub, but frankly, I kind of doubt that Cub would be interested. I think they'd be probably a little too large for this market. Ken?
Ken and Sally Kessler, we live next door to the church in the Brown House, and I've got class bus in downtown. And I've got two questions. One is for Larry from the Historical Society. And
Ken, could you come up here and use the microphone? I'm afraid otherwise no one will hear you.
I'll talk louder.
Okay.
Larry, it's my understanding that the Historical Society likes to keep old buildings and old memories of how the people lived in that time. Is this correct?
Right.
So the Historical Society is behind this project, which is essentially having the state force me to sell my property to one individual. It's a socialistic behavior of the state controlling what I can do and what I can't do with properties that I own. And it surprises me that the Historical Society would support the state forcing me to sell them my property and leave the city amount.
No, what we have done is we are just presenting the view of what is happening. We would love to preserve everything we could that's preservable.
So human rights, and my forefathers died so that I'd have the right to own something, not the state owning everything.
Well, our society is just, it is a society. It's not an arm of the law. It has no real power. We can ask to preserve, but we're on the low end of anything that's going to happen. And in order to preserve things, most historical societies have had to buy a building themselves and use it, some of the places in St. Paul and Minneapolis that were bought by historical societies. But our historical society is, there's probably more change in that little can there than we carry in our historical society. So we don't have the power to stop a city or a state or whoever is involved in condemning something or tearing it down.
We're sponsoring this meeting only as a public forum,
Yeah.
making the people aware that there's a gathering here. We're not pro or con. We're just making the space available and through our efforts.
Then back to the city manager and Bruce, which I've asked you before, do I have the right to keep my own property and upgrade it? I will spend the money. I will make it the facade look like it. I live 2 doors down. I own the shop there. I want to stay in Mound. I find that, why can't I do the same as Don's and get the TIF money and make my building the way you want it to look? Why won't you allow me to do that?
That's one of the difficult issues of redevelopment. When we're going through a process that as extensive as the downtown redevelopment project is in Mound, we're changing street patterns, we're changing orientations of buildings, and we're changing the use of those buildings. And the location of your building is within the Auditor's Road District. And we'll have a new street. I don't know exactly if that street that comes through, let's see right here, it would, I think, miss your building.
Yes, it would.
The difficulty is that the developer that that the city has a contract with has been given the right to redevelop the Auditor's Road District. And the city has said that they will work with that redeveloper to do that project. And with the type of project that they're envisioning, with retail on the main level and 3 stories of housing above, it's frankly virtually impossible to make your building fit within that pattern.
I will tear it down and build one that does. I gave you a copy of a $1.3 million bill a year and a half ago. It conforms to the look. I haven't heard that.
I'd like to see that again.
Do the Meisels and King, do they retain their buildings?
It depends on, good question. The way we're envisioning it, I need to repeat the question, I'm sorry. The question was, will the Meisels and Koenigs retain their buildings? And the way the financing package has been put together to date, both of those buildings would probably sell to the developer. But the owners of those buildings really have the option of doing the facade improvements that we're suggesting as part of the redevelopment effort, and holding on to those buildings if they choose, as long as what they will do fits within the overall redevelopment pattern and package that's being put together.
Well, we might want to build a building also on our location. Is that what we propose to do?
The city can't, the question is, they may also want to build a building on their property. The city doesn't have the power or the authority to stop you from building a building on your property. The city has devoted or told the redeveloper, your group, that it will not publicly finance any other redevelopment project within the Langdon District or the Auditor's Road District besides the project that he is putting together. That's a preliminary development agreement that the city has with the
Well,
redeveloper.
I'm dealing with the city, not the developer.
Right, and you have the power and the authority to build a building on your property if you so choose. Yes, sir. Mr. Evans.
Thank you. John Evans from Arbor Lane. Just a quick comment. We're absolutely thrilled with this whole thing. It's going to add a different dimension to maritime living, if you will, to be able to take a boat from your residence to downtown Mound. It's just thrilling. And congratulations and so on. I wanted to ask you, would it be possible, by the way, good decision on holding off on the 40-room hotel. This is Mound. We can do much better. And we're in the process of doing much better. When relatives come to town, I've got to say, well, they'll have to go to Minneapolis or Edina or some other town. I'd like to keep the money in town, and it would be very nice to have a large hotel with decent. We have decent restaurants in town. Don't get me wrong. I like every one of them. We've eaten in them all, and we think highly of them. But to get one that you can take your relatives to and have a cheers type atmosphere, you know what I mean? Maybe a liquor license. Shame on us for thinking that way, but this is the real world, you know. And there's going to be some aches and pains, but the greater good is being served very well, in our opinion. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yes, Joe. question is, has the Beard Group actually signed an agreement with the city for Main Street Mound, which is what they're calling their partnership? Yes, they have. The city has a preliminary development agreement with the Beard Group. Essentially, that agreement says that the city and the Beard Group will work together to redevelop the properties that we defined as the Langdon District and the Auditors Road District. That's a preliminary agreement. The final agreement is really the one that commits both parties to putting dollars on the table and doing really aggressive redevelopment action in a certain time frame. And that's the one that'll go to the city council in April.
April 11th?
April 11th, Beard Group will be going to the city council for the preliminary look at that final development agreement.
For the preliminary look at it, not
Right.
for the final signing?
I doubt that they'll approve it at that meeting. They may, but I don't think we'll be in a position to. I think it's going to take probably 2 meetings at least to do that.
So in other words, the Beard Group will not do anything definite, like starting to dig?
Right.
Until that is signed finally?
Right. But I think it'll take 2 meetings in the month of April in order to put that together. I think the the True Value, Coast to Coast is changing their name to True Value. I think that agreement is less complex. It only has a single user. There are only 2 parties involved, and I think we can put that one together in one meeting. Yes, sir.
You talk about the Beard Group. Is Mound, and I've been reading the papers primarily, but is Mound just had a hard time finding a developer that would bite?
Yes, initially. When I became involved in this project in 91, we sent out, and it was probably the wrong way to do it, but we sent out a request for proposals to developers across the Twin City development community and asked them to express an interest in redeveloping the downtown area. At the time, we had the preliminary plan of what you see up here. We had a notion of what we wanted to accomplish, but at that time, the city had not put any dollars on the table for infrastructure improvements and that kind of thing. And we were looking at obviously some fairly extensive infrastructure improvements for the canal, relocation of County Road 15, those kinds of things. And the response we got from the development community was less than enthusiastic. And I think we walked away from that situation learning a lot about what needed to be done. And at that time, the city really reoriented its focus on the order of things happening. We pursued grant opportunities. The city started to save municipal gas tax dollars to build the new Main Street. We began working with the county to get the relocation of the county road on their capital improvement program, so that all of the infrastructure components that needed to be in place to support private development were underway. And at that time, we really started to get a lot of interest from the development community. But I also want to say that there are very few developers who understand how to develop a multi-use downtown district.
Wisconsin has done a good job at that. That's why I asked about the
Right. And we think we have a tremendous developer in the Beard Group because they have experience in working in multi-use downtown districts like this. And they've proven to be very sensitive to the kinds of things that will create a pedestrian-oriented downtown. So it was difficult at first. It was difficult finding a developer, but thankfully I think we found the right one. Yes?
I'd like to know, are you thinking about changing the name of Auditors Road and Lost Lake?
The question is, are we thinking about changing the name of Auditors Road and Lost Lake? There was a series of articles in the paper not too long ago, I think probably 6 or 8 months ago, asking for people to submit ideas on changing the name of Auditors Road. And that decision, or the recommendation of that decision, was left to the Economic Development Commission at that time. And we had just begun working with the Beard Group not too long before that on their redevelopment plans for Auditors Road. And they asked the EDC to hold on the decision until they get further along in their plans, and maybe even until the project is built, so that the name of the road really befits the project that is built there. So I anticipate that the name is going to change, but at this point we don't know exactly what. As far as Lost Lake Canal, no one has ever thought about changing the name of Lost Lake Canal. I think it has a certain, maybe panache is the wrong word, but it has a certain local flavor that I think people respond to. And people know Lost Lake. So far we haven't heard thoughts that people want to, but if folks do, we'll think about it.